Hi, everybody. I've got to start off a little bit talking about the fact that I'm standing up here speaking at a social media conference. And when I went home and told my wife I was going to do that, she just kind of laughed. I'm not the most technologically advanced person on the USA Swimming staff, by far. I also need to give you a little bit of perspective about my experience as a coach for 30 years with marketing and swim teams. I will tell you that we faithfully budgeted dollars every single year in our budget for marketing. Always a line item in the budget. We consistently spent less than we budgeted. And if we ever had a good excuse to reallocate those dollars from marketing to something else when things got tight, we did that without missing a beat. And we didn't probably always take advantage of the marketing resources that we had at our disposal with parents in the club, the expertise and experience that people in the club might have had. And I also need to make you aware that one of my most successful experiences or marketing events was a total accident. One of the facilities that I used to coach at, we opened on the weekends for lap swim and recreational swim in the afternoon. And because of an equipment failure at the pool, one Sunday, we had an air quality issue that caused us to call 911 and send 3 or 4 people to the hospital. And fortunately, the people went to the hospital, were checked out and dismissed. Everybody was okay. But much to our organization's chagrin, we were on the 6 p.m. and 10 p.m. news that night advertising this little accident. Much to our surprise, 2 weeks later, we had a 15% increase in our lesson registrations at the next session of lessons. I guess any publicity is better than none. So with that marketing legacy, my objective today is to point out to you and talk to you a little bit about the value of a swimmer in your program and the potential benefits that you have at your disposal in today's world with the various possibilities marketing-wise that social media presents. Swimming is a great sport. We all love it for a variety of reasons, but as much as any, for the great things that it does for young people, whether it be life skill development, goal setting, character development, all of those kinds of things that help teach young people the process of success. We love that part of the sport. But we sometimes, I think, tend to be too focused on the intangibles and sometimes forget to think about or think enough about the basics of running a swimming business. A little business savvy goes a long way towards making the intangible part of the equation possible. It's my opinion, after being in this position for 12 years, that swim teams in general need to think and act more like businesses. Let's talk for a second about some of the questions that good business owners, operators need to ask. I guess it'd be good if I'd use my slides, wouldn't it? I think one of the things that I see happen with clubs out there is the tendency for club leaders, whether it be a coach-owned situation or a board governing situation, to kind of be happy with the status quo when it comes to the business of the club. And I think there are certain questions that a good business needs to ask itself on a regular basis. Maybe it's an annual basis, maybe it's every 6 months, but things like, what products and services do you provide? Who's our ideal customer? What are the key revenue sources and expenses that you face in this business? How do you attract new customers? How do you cultivate customer satisfaction? Those are things that a good business needs to ask itself on a regular basis. And let me give you an example of why in a swim team situation. Most swim teams today have some kind of novice introductory group for their swim team. They may have 1 or 2 age groups. They may have a pre-senior group, and they probably have some kind of senior group. And that's the basic product or service that they offer, is those 4 or 5 team units. How often do they stop and ask themselves, well, maybe we need to think about adding a Learn to Swim program, or maybe we need to think about adding a master's program and evaluate the products and services that they're being provided. So I think there's a tendency to just kind of take the status quo for granted and not ask those kind of questions regularly enough or often enough. But in particular, the question I think we want to focus on today is how do we attract new customers? So what are you doing to attract customers to your team? Are you running, do you have promotional flyers? Do you have social media things that you're doing? Do you conduct stroke clinics for summer league swimmers in your area? Have you tried doing a promotion with Groupon or one of those kinds of things? Do you have a marketing plan? Do you have a budget for marketing? What I want to do today is convince you of two things. Number one, that you have the resources to support a consistent and effective marketing program. And number two, a few dollars spent on marketing ideas like the ones you'll hear about at this conference are dollars wisely invested. The next presentation that you're going to hear is from Jim Fox, and he's going to be talking to you about Facebook advertising. And I think that's a good example of some of the things that are out there that swim teams are maybe not taking advantage of. Have you ever really thought about the value of one swimmer to your program? I think we all, let me back up here. I think we all appreciate the competitive advantages or the competitive value that a young person brings to any kind of athletic team. In this case, we want to think a little bit less about that and a little bit more about the financial value that a young person brings to the program. And while I think we generally understand the impact of team fees and that kind of thing, I think when I share some of these numbers with you, you may be a little bit surprised at the overall impact. Individual swimmer revenue opportunities include monthly dues, annual registration fees, team uniform purchases of some type. And teams do a variety of different things with team uniform purchases, everything from having a $300 or $400 package to simply giving away a team cap and a team t-shirt at the time somebody registers. Facility fee. There's a lot of situations where in order to get into a long course pool in the summertime, the kids on the team that swim at long course have to pay a little extra fee for facility fees. And of course, the ever-present fundraising. We're seeing a little bit less fundraising here and there as we look across the country, but it's still a pretty big staple for a lot of programs out there. So let's talk about what a new swimmer's worth. I want to introduce to you Charlie. Charlie's our fictional new team member starting competitive swimming at 8 years of age. It's very possible Charlie could have participated in your Learn to Swim program if you have one before he joined the competitive team. But for the purposes of this example, let's assume that Charlie started off as a novice competitor in your swim team program. Like most teams at the beginning level, the fees are a little bit less, the commitment's a little bit less stringent than they are for older kids. Using the numbers provided in the last slide, Charlie will produce about $1,700 in revenue his first year. So let's jump to year number 3. By the time he's 11 years old, Charlie's moved to the next team level, which costs a little bit more, and now he's probably purchasing some training equipment that he didn't have to purchase ahead of time. And in looking back over a 3-year period, he's contributed a little over $5,000 to the team coffers during that period of time. And the 3-year mark, I think, is a critical period. Many of you may not realize that the average length of time that a young person who's a member of USA Swimming stays with the organization is 2.5 years. So you can make an argument that for every child that you ever start in your program, they're going to be there generally for 2.5 years at a minimum. And looking at it strictly from that perspective, Charlie's income over 3 years is $5,300, but he would have generated about $4,500 in the 2.5-year period. At 14 years of age, Charlie is now the second highest training group on the team. His team fees are a little higher. He buys more uniform and equipment items. His fundraising requirement is a little higher. And since starting the team 5 years ago, he's produced just almost $10,000 in revenue. By the time he's a senior in high school, you don't know Charlie very well yet, but you're probably asking, why is he still wearing that cape? But the key takeaway that I want you to see in this slide is his overall value to the program over 10 years, over $20,000. If you had spent $150 10 years ago to print some promotional brochures that were distributed at Charlie's age group, Charlie's elementary school, and that was the vehicle that first created his interest into your program, his and his family's interest into your program, you made a pretty good investment of $150. And Charlie's only one summer. There could have been 2 or 3 other kids that started the team that same. Is that good? Okay. In trying to determine the value of your marketing program, don't forget people like Charlie. He was a good investment after year number 1, a great investment after year number 3, and a phenomenal investment after year number 5. The thing that I also want you to realize is that there are more difficult ways to quantify value to a program, such as volunteer hours, publicity for achievements at certain levels of the sport, promotion at school, T-shirt, or a team warm-up jacket, parents' promotion by word of mouth or on social media, heat sheet and concession sales. There's a variety of things, of more intangible kinds of ways that young people and their families make contributions to your program that are difficult to quantify, like the team fees and the fee structure that we've just been through. The thing that I think's important to realize is that small marketing budgets can produce significant long-term value. And a few new summers provide sufficient resources to fund those marketing efforts. It doesn't really matter which one comes first. It's not a chicken or egg situation. You've just got to start someplace and realize that if your team is operating below capacity, you're missing some significant revenue opportunities based on the numbers that we've looked at following Charlie's 10-year career with his program. And I think it's important that in this day and time, with all the competition that we have out there in the marketplace in youth sports, that you really focus on doing some advertising, doing some promotion, making people in your community aware of your program. You can't slide by like I was able to do for many years as a coach. I think the marketplace is different now, and I think the biggest difference is with stuff like with opportunities that social media provides. There's a lot of very effective ways that you can market your program and help promote yourself within the community that really haven't been out there and been able to be utilized before.